Spring has sprung in the great state of Iowa, and if you've been thinking about getting outdoors with your family during the best time of year, we want to help you here at Plaza RV. We are a locally owned RV dealer in Bondurant who cares about our customers before, during, and most importantly, after your purchase. Give us a chance. We will treat you like family. Buy local. Buy from Plaza RV.
Eric Church Free the Machine Tour. Live at Wells Fargo Arena, Saturday, September 27th. One epic night of music that you won't want to miss with special guest Marcus King Band. Get tickets now at highvtix.com. His new album, Evangeline vs. the Machine, is out now. For more, visit ericchurch.com.
Hello and welcome into Bigger Than 12 here in the Channel Seed Studios. Oh man, this weather, it is perfect. It's like 80 degrees today, a lot of sunshine. I hit the golf course like 3 or 4 times last week. I've been shooting hoops every morning. It is perfect weather here in Iowa. Derek, joining me in Texas. How are you doing, man?
Doing good. Didn't we just do a show together? Do we not just do one?
I don't know what you're talking about. This is the first Bigger Than 12 we've done since I think Wednesday of last week. I don't know what
I think it was Monday.
About.
Yeah. No. Hey, I'll say this. I had fun filling in for Williams and Bloom on Sunday for over at Cyclone Fanatic. So now we're here back in our own show. Got a fresh beer with me. And speaking of being back, damn it, summer is back down here. Full week of 100 plus here. We've been keeping our curtains closed at home, letting no sunlight in the house to make sure our house stays cool. So it's going to be a brutal week down here.
Once you get that house of yours built, and then like 5 years of stability, you've actually got to pull the trigger and buy a summer house up here in Iowa.
It's probably going to be a lot more than 5 years after this house is built.
So they were talking about this on Overthinking today. Overthinking noon on Mondays here on Iowa Everywhere Live. They were talking overrated, underrated, properly rated, and summer came up, and Scott said overrated. I think summer's underrated. And I think 40% of people said summer's overrated. I love summer. Like I like when it gets in the 90s. I can maybe even do a couple days of 100. I like golfing in the hot. I like boating. Jumping in a pool or a lake or a pond. But if summer started this soon, and by summer I mean like 100 degrees in May, like you're experiencing, I don't know if I could do that. I can do like 3 to 4 weeks of the miserably hot and humid, and then it's like, all right, I'm kind of ready for the fall to come on here.
That we're in like the worst drought ever, like the last 150 years or whatever it is, the last few years. And then I think 2 years ago, we had like 60 something days of 100 plus from May until I think September it was. So it was a bad summer. So I'm hoping this summer is not nearly that bad. But, you know, you talked about jumping into a lake. We can jump into the lake over here, but I think it's like 2% full right now. So you might get like ankle deep if you're not
jump
careful.
into some mud.
Yeah. Jump into some mud.
Is it even mud, or is it just dry dirt now?
It's just rocks. It looks like a giant crater hit the earth, and it's just nothing. You can't even put a boat in there right now. Pretty bad.
Sorry, I was probably being a jerk this week and sending you pictures of me drinking
I know.
beer by the lake.
I was like, damn, that looks really nice. I was like, what does a lake look like again? I had to kind of go back in my memory here to think about what that actually looks like.
It's still too cold up here, not weather-wise, but water-wise. I think the water was 62 degrees when I was back home this weekend. No, that's too cold for swimming.
No.
So I haven't dipped in the lake yet, but it is this time of the year is the best for sitting by a bonfire right by the lake, drinking beer, seeing the stars.
Yeah, not going to catch me around any fires right now.
Sorry, I'm just making you intentionally jealous. We are
It's fine.
brought to you by WealthCharter Retirement Planning and Tax. Derek, you need to meet with Tim Hawkins and his team. Get a retirement plan figured out so that you can move up to here for these Iowa summers and get the hell out of Texas. Tim Hawkins and his team are your guys to break down all your finances, from 401k to anything tax related. Right now is a great time to hit up Tim Hawkins at wealthcharterretirement.com. No matter what stage of life you're in, it's a great call to make. So we're going to start with a little inside football when it comes to trying to fix the sport. Honestly, maybe not just college football, trying to fix college athletics in general. And Donald J. Trump, President 46, is teaming up with some very rich people, and they're going to attempt to fix the sport. I don't know if they'll be able to do it, but Derek, I'll let you take the reins on this. I know there's some Texas connections to it, so go right ahead.
Yeah, we're getting political here on Bigger Than 12. Never thought I would see the day that happens, but we haven't hit on it just because simply due to the fact that this whole thing started after our last show. And in case you've been living under a rock, Donald Trump is going to get involved with college athletics. He's created a presidential commission on college athletics, the Commission on College Sports. This is a quote from, I think, Yahoo it was, is expected to deeply examine the landscape of college sports, including the frequency of player movement in the transfer portal, unregulated booster compensation paid to athletes, the debate of college football athlete employment, the application of Title IX to the school revenue share payments, and even conference membership makeup and conference television contracts. This is why it's a very fascinating story to me, because now he recently named former Alabama head coach Nick Saban and Texas Tech board chairman and NIL Collective founder Cody Campbell to co-chair the commission on this college athletics thing. And from what I've heard so far, from the early whispers, I guess, that have come out of this whole thing, is that Cody Campbell and that Nick Saban don't actually see eye to eye on a lot of topics. They have a lot of different views on things. And I think that's actually a good thing to have different views on this, because if you're hearing both sides of the argument, maybe that helps you make a better decision for what's going to happen to college athletics moving forward. And as much hope as I have for change and stability in the sport, which I think everybody wants that, we also have to realize at some point that this is not the old days of college football. It's not 1990 anymore. It's not 2010 anymore. Pandora's box was opened years ago. The toothpaste is out of the tube, whatever you want to say, and you're not going to put it back in. Players are going to get paid. They're going to transfer to where they want, and at some point, we're going to have to accept that, whether we like it or not. The sport's changed for the better or worse. I think it's safe to say that. While I do hope we get guardrails put up on college athletics, I'm also skeptical. I mean, no matter what the president and this commission do, people are going to fight this thing in court tooth and nail. And there is going to be, I can say with 100% confidence, that there's going to be more lawsuits on the horizon. We're at the point in college football, as crazy as this sounds, where we're letting politicians try to run the sport. I never thought that day would come, but here we are. And we're leaving it in their hands. And I don't know about you, but these people, I've said this before on the show, they can't even agree on how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And now we have to trust them to help the sport we all love. And I think we have a good reason that we should all be worried at this point.
So you mentioned that Saban and this fellow from Texas Tech maybe aren't seeing eye to eye. Do you know like what issues, or like what side are those two on? I would imagine it might be Big 12 versus SEC, just considering the biases, but do you know what those rumors are? Of course, there's no way to actually know.
Yeah, I haven't heard much on it. It's just, I guess, kind of broad topics is from what I've kind of gathered from this. And it's rumors, whispers, hearsay. So nothing is concrete with these two, but I can understand where, you have a former SEC football coach in Nick Saban, Cody Campbell, obviously coming from the Big 12 and Texas Tech. They're going to have, at some point, some bias is going to play in here. I mean, with Nick Saban and his ties to Alabama, Cody Campbell, his ties to Texas Tech, at some point there's going to be a little bit of bias in there.
And remind me, what exactly is Cody Campbell's role? I'm guessing he's an oil guy.
Yeah, well, he made all of his, what would you said, billions? We talked about it the other day. Of his net worth is over $1 billion. So yes, he's definitely an oil guy. Made a bunch of money. I think he had some. I can't remember the company name he had, but he's just stupid rich out there in West Texas.
I know our job is to have an opinion, and I do have some opinions on this, but I don't feel like they're informed enough to know like what is going on in these meetings between Donald Trump and Nick Saban. But I think you alluded to the point that I initially jumped to, and it's that it's never going to be the same. But how close can we get it to like being close to the same? How close can we get it to being in the ballpark? Because right now we're not in the ballpark. Right now we're in the Allegheny River playing against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Like we are way, way out there. And there is a way to make college athletics even somewhat normal again. Is that affecting the transfer portal? Is it giving players one free transfer and anything after that, they've either got to sit out a year, I don't know what the fix is, because if you do that, they'll get sued into oblivion. There's got to be a negotiation, because unfortunately the NCAA screwed this up way, way long ago. And if we want to call the product in 1995 100% or an A+, right now we're floating around 40% in an F. It's unrecognizable to what it used to be, but there are ways that it can be better. And it starts with people like President Trump, people like Cody Campbell at Texas Tech, billions of dollars, Nick Saban, one of the greatest coaches in the history of the sport, respected throughout the sport. It starts with those guys being in the same room, and even if they have disagreements, talking about it. Isn't that a novel concept? So hopefully that is what's going on behind closed doors, and they are coming up with solutions to save the sport. Because if we go into 2030 and it's a mega conference between the best of the SEC and the best of the Big Ten and everybody's left out, maybe not in 2030, people will stop watching, but in 2040, I can guarantee you if Iowa and Iowa State are left out of whatever the future of the sport looks like, if they're left out of it, people in Iowa won't watch. I'm sorry, I wouldn't watch. And I'm sure that there are a lot of people in Pullman, Washington, and places in places like that, in Corvallis, Oregon, that don't watch as much as they used to because they're not included. And we've got to find a way to fix that before it's too late.
Yeah, and it didn't take a genius to figure out like where this sport was heading, and yet the NCAA and the schools sat on their hands for years because they were making so much money that they never bothered to thought ahead. I mean, if you think about it right now, the NCAA is a joke. They're pretty much powerless at this point. Just think about who's running the current college football playoff system. It's the Big Ten and the SEC. NCAA president Charlie Baker, he's just standing on the sidelines and watching this unfold like the rest of us. So he has no power whatsoever, but it's just a shame. We do need to fix the pay. That needs to be adjusted. And most importantly, this damn transfer portal. I mean, do you remember when a player had to sit out for a year when they transferred to another school? I mean, some players weren't even allowed to transfer to a school in the same conference as their previous school. Those days are long gone. I mean, this is a 24/7 free agency period, and what we have today is just pay for play. It's as simple as that. The term student athlete, thing of the past. Do you think anybody when it comes to college football is worried about how players doing academically if they go to class. Zero. They don't care. They just want to get them on the field, play as well as they can. And fans want the player to play as great as they can. Players want as much money as they can to play on the field. So again, this whole situation's a mess. And whether you agree, you like Donald Trump, you hate him, you're somewhere in between, we need somebody in a higher power to step in and try to sort these issues out, because if we keep letting it go with the way it is, you're right. Maybe not next year or in 5 years or maybe even 10 years from now, where the product is going to hurt, where you're seeing numbers decline with fan support and all these types of things. But yeah, maybe 20 years down the line, if we don't get this thing fixed, maybe it's just basically an NFL junior where we have super conferences. It's just the Big Ten and the SEC all in one conference, playing out their own version of a championship or a Super Bowl or whatever they want to call it by that point. But something has to be done now. Something should have been done years ago, but it's better late than never.
And in that scenario where it's just the SEC or just the Big Ten, that wouldn't represent what's great about college football. We've had this discussion multiple times on here that I don't care about the national championship. I watch it. I think it's important. It's important to crown a national champion. Like that's the essence of sports. But I don't love college football for the national championship. I love college football for Farmageddon, for the Holy War, for the Rivalry. We'll talk about all that in just a little bit. I love it for the Cyhawk game. I love it for Colorado getting Coach Prime and filling those seats. It's about the Saturdays in September, October, November. It's not about a corporate national championship in Atlanta, Georgia, between two teams that inherently have advantages over everybody else. And that's why you can have 62,500 people at Jack Trice Stadium on a Saturday when everybody, even the most delusional fan in that stadium, knows that Iowa State will never be able to win a national championship in college football. But people show up. Why? Because not only is it something to do on Saturday, there's other stuff to win. There's Big 12 championships to win. There's rivalries to win. There's trophies against rivals to win. There's bragging rights with those within your state, with bordering states. That's what college football is about. And the more and more that we head to a super conference, and the more and more that we put all of our eggs into the college football playoff and the national championship, the more that stuff gets watered down. And ultimately, that will be the demise of college athletics.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. There's so many great things about the sport we all love, and it just seems like every single year or every few years, they're just slowly going away. We've already seen rivalries across college football are way down because these teams are in different conferences. They don't want to schedule because their schedule's 5 years out. So it's just everything is going in the wrong direction. I don't think it's any secret. And it's been doing that for the last few years.
I know there's been talk of the playoff expanding to 16. Screw it. Shrink the playoff. I don't care. Bring it down to 8. Bring it down to 6. Give the Big 12 one bid. Give the ACC one bid. I'd maybe group of 5. We don't need to get into that now. And then let the SEC and Big 10 divide it up. If they want to do play-in games, if they want their conference runner-up to automatically be in, I don't care. You can divide those other 6 spots up between those two conferences however you want. If you want to be in the Big 10 or if you want to be in the SEC, you've got to finish in the top 3 of that conference. I don't care. I don't care how many 5-star recruits you have. I don't care how hard your strength of schedule is. In order to win a national championship, you got to win games. And I think the more and more that we expand the playoff to 12 or whatever it was this last year, to 16 or God forbid 32, the more the regular season becomes devalued. And I know that the coaches, the players, the administrators need a seat at the table. That's important. I think it's really important for a team like Iowa State or a team like Kansas State or Baylor or Colorado. It's important for those schools to have a chance to compete for a national championship, but we all know that they'll never win one. The end goal should be getting to that playoff, and if you can take down a mighty giant or two on the way there, that's awesome. But stop expanding the playoff. Shrink it back to 8. I guess not back to 8. It was never at 8. But shrink it back to 8 and make these games on Saturday mean as much as they should.
See, I'm kind of maybe on the other end of that, because I think at some point, even with 12, I think it kept the regular season a little bit and more interesting towards the end there, because you still have a bunch of teams fighting for the spots. My only issue is that the Big 12 isn't the one getting those spots. It's the SEC and the Big 10. So yeah, when you have the 4th or 3rd place Big 10 or SEC team getting in the playoff, I kind of have a problem with that. So, and then you only have one Big 12 team and a 12-team playoff like last year. It's tough. It does not make it easy. So my only concern with expanding the playoff is you hope the Big 12, they give the Big 12 2 automatic bids, which would be great. But then you look at the Big 10 and the SEC, they want double that. So they want 4.
Yeah.
So that's my really only issue with that. But again, they're the ones controlling the playoff. They're not going to give up that power if they don't have to. So why would they? If they had it their way, they would put 5 teams in from their conference. That's just the way it is. And unfortunately, the Big 12s and the ACC are kind of just sitting back alongside of them, just kind of having to agree with it, because if not, they're the ones going to be left out of the playoff, and nobody wants that, because then you're going to lose out on revenue.
Yeah, and my problem with that is if we reach this point where it's 16 and the Big 10 and SEC are both getting 5 teams in, Ohio State, Michigan is still a great rivalry. I'll still watch. There's still going to be fights at the end of every game, but it won't be an elimination game.
No.
Almost ever.
Yeah.
And that's what made it so special before the playoff even expanded to 12. There was those years where if Ohio State wins, they're in the playoff. If Michigan wins, they're in the playoff. If either of them lose, they're not making the playoff. And that made it mean so much more. And if we reach it to 5 with these conferences, what's an elimination game? Vanderbilt, Oklahoma? That's not college football. Oh, Illinois, Iowa. That's a classic college football playoff elimination game.
That's a barn burner right there.
That's just not how it should be. And even with the Big 12, if it's 2, like, trust me, if it's a 16-team playoff, the Big 12 definitely deserves 2. They should even probably deserve more. But wouldn't that just devalue the Big 12 championship game? Knowing,
it's already happened across the other leagues. The Big 12 this past year, I believe, was the only power conference where
it was a play-in game.
It was a play-in game for the playoff. That was the only conference championship that truly mattered when it comes to the playoff. Obviously, you want to win a Big 12 title, but still, when it comes to playoff.
So if the Big 12 and ACC are both getting 2, why not just get rid of these conference championship games? Keep those teams healthy. Give them a better shot to go up against a Texas, a Georgia. And unfortunately, I like conference championship games, but again, they're in these big corporate stadiums. It's not the same as a Saturday in Manhattan or a Saturday in Stillwater, but it's still important, and we're probably going to lose that the more the playoff expands.
Yep.
Well, we went deep in the weeds on that.
We did.
I think that was a good discussion.
You want to release your little hot take that you had the other day?
Yeah, I've got a very hot take, but first, this is not a hot take. Freedom Tire, it's the best auto service in central Iowa. I can say that firsthand. I've been there several times for oil changes, for maintenance. They're the best. They've got locations in Ames, Altoona, Des Moines, West Des Moines, Urbandale, Quentin Crowner and his team. They'll shoot straight with you. They're not going to upcharge you. They're a locally owned business. They're people that you'll see at the store. They're just like you and me. Go support Freedom Tire. They're a locally owned business. They specialize, obviously, in tires, whether you need new ones or you need some patched up, but they do it all with your car. So take it in there for an oil change, any normal checkups or maintenance, Freedom Tire is your place to be. My hot take. I think Mike Gundy is about to coach his last season of football in Stillwater. He is, if he's not the most polarizing figure in college football, he is no worse than in the top 5. From the hairdo to the off-color comments talking about, I've had like 1,000 DUIs in my life, to the success and the lows that he's had on the football field. Mike Gundy embodies college football. Love him or hate him. Unfortunately, I don't think he's made for this era of college football, and that is not a hot take in itself. We saw it last year where the Oklahoma State Cowboys finished 15th in the Big 12. They had an NFL drafted running back in Ollie Gordon who was expected to be the Doak Walker Award winner, and he didn't really even finish in the top half of the league in rushing. They had talent, but for whatever reason, Gundy thought it was okay to go into the season with 18th year quarterback Alan Bowman, who'd accomplished nothing, and a bunch of scraps. And that decision with the quarterback cost him a lot. His roster construction on the defensive side of the ball resulted in one of the most disappointing college football seasons that I can remember. And we talked about it on the Cyclone Fanatic show that Mike Gundy's been up against the grain before. And there's been years where they were expected to be down and they show up to Dallas and they're literally an inch away from winning the Big 12 championship. So I'm not ruling out the possibility that Mike Gundy could miraculously rally his guys and put together a dang good Big 12 football season. But with the way that everything has transpired the last year and the near firing, I think we called it a standoff. An old fashioned Texas showdown between him and the athletic department. His seat has to be scorching hot, even though he's the most powerful man in Stillwater. And if they go 5-7 or 4-8, like I expect them to, I don't see how you move forward into the future of college athletics with Mike Gundy at the helm. And I know that's probably really hard for Pokes fans to hear or comprehend, but he is not fit for the future of this sport. And it's time to get new blood in there because their fans, they deserve it.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that to the show because when you said that, it made just fireworks go off in my head here because our topic was who was going to be the next Big 12 coach who gets canned. And I thought that was crazy to say Mike Gundy over a guy like Brent Brennan at Arizona or Scott Satterfield at Cincinnati. And here's the thing. I don't disagree with you that Gundy is going to be out of Stillwater in the near future. I don't see him coaching at Oklahoma State by the time 2028 rolls around or 2030 or whatever it may be. He's got a few years left in the tank, or at least that's what he says to people out loud. And I looked this up this morning when we were going to talk about this on the show. Gundy has won 9 or more games twice in the last 7 seasons.
Wow.
Now, keep in mind that he did that 9 times from 2008 to 2017. So there is a pretty obvious difference there that this is not peak Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State anymore. What we've seen since 2018, I believe it was, that there's been a whole lot of inconsistencies across the board. I mean, you brought up some situations. You remember the whole OAN radio thing a few years back?
Oh, gosh, yeah.
There were rumors about locker room issues, people saying that he doesn't really care about the players. There's been some rough patches with Mike Gundy in Stillwater, and perhaps no better example of that was last December when we all thought Gundy would leave after having disagreements with the people within the school. But I think everybody that knows understands that he's not a fan of today's college football. There are a lot of people that aren't, including myself, but he is involved in this. He's a head coach of a school, so he's got to deal with it. It's the whole adapt or die motto that he's going to have to embrace. He's the second longest tenured head coach, only behind the vampire Kirk Ferentz at Iowa, and he's pretty much built Oklahoma State from the ground up, truly. So one day there is going to be a Mike Gundy statue outside of Boone Pickens, but the man just has so much power right now. If they do have a bad season like they did last year, maybe he resigns, maybe he quits, but I think that's the only way he's going to leave. It's going to be on his own terms. I mean, the man's contract it's a rolling contract, and I believe it still runs through 2028, so I don't see him leaving after this season.
Yeah, and in this current landscape, it's hard to fire guys, especially when they have massive buyouts and a lot of money. And that's where I do think, no matter how this ends, whether it's his decision or whether it's the school's decision, I think there will be some sort of mutual parting of the ways. And I know it doesn't sound like Mike Gundy to go out all calm and peaceful, but I think no matter how this ends, he will be compensated. But I just think for the sake of the program, he's built this up. He has made Oklahoma State not into a name brand, but they're probably on tier 2 or tier 3 in the sport. And if Gundy sticks around for too much longer and has 2 more seasons like 2024, they could be shot all the way down to tier 4, tier 5, and it's going to be that much harder to build the program back up. So I think for the program's sake and for his legacy's sake, if he doesn't turn around this year, he should step away and let somebody else capitalize on what he's built.
Well, you're a glass half full guy on that situation, because I just don't see it happening. Not with him after this season.
Yeah, I'm probably underestimating how clearly stubborn and how much power he has, but I'm going to stand by the take. I'm sure we'll talk a lot about Mike Gundy this upcoming season, good or bad. Like it, if they're good, it'll definitely be a story. If they're bad, it'll be a story on, are we watching Gundy's final game at home against Iowa State? Blah, blah, blah. Well, I can't wait for football. I can't wait to talk about actual football and not like, who do we think's going to get fired? I enjoy doing that stuff.
That was my idea.
No, I mean, I think I was doing it last week anyways. So okay. I enjoy doing all of that stuff, but it's nowhere near as fun as actually breaking down the games. Aiden's going to come on here with the Iowa trivia question. I'm excited to see what this one's about.
All right, Derek. Marion the librarian runs a library in a small town of River City, Iowa, in what acclaimed and popular 1957 musical and its film adaptation?
You guys know me by now. Do I look like a guy that spends time in the library or reads books or knows anything about some Broadway show or play? Do I strike you as that kind of guy?
Yeah, you're a man of culture.
Yeah. I don't even have a guess. I don't even know. I've never watched a Broadway play in my life.
Jake?
It looks like he's looking it up. He looks like he's cheating right now.
No, I actually just got a call from somebody. I had to text him that I'm podcasting right now. So maybe some sort of play in a library.
You could do the phone the friend thing. Maybe you should answer and ask them.
This guy won't know. Are you kidding me? I don't know. Oklahoma, just because it'd be funny if Oklahoma was filmed in Iowa.
It's The Music Man.
Yeah, never heard of it.
I've never heard of that.
Well, culture yourselves.
Have you heard of that before this?
There's no way heard of that.
Oh, yeah.
What's your favorite part?
I used to know a song. My grandpa was in it at Iowa State, so I kind of like grew up. He would always play songs and stuff. So.
Oh, gotcha. You're being serious. Okay. No, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like
it
a
is
jerk.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, Jake. Damn it.
Oh, Aiden is grinding. He was on Murph and Andy earlier today. He was doing our Cyclone Fanatic show with us last night.
He's working nonstop. He's working overtime.
He's probably got to go babysit for Williams tonight or something after this show. Aiden Aiden is working hard in the offseason. There's never an offseason for Aiden Wyatt. A few more football topics for you. We did most overlooked teams last week.
Mm-hmm.
How about we do most overrated teams heading into 2025? I've got one team. I'm guessing you've got one team, Derek. Who are you going with?
We haven't told each other, so I'm very interested to hear yours. Since you're going to let me go first, I'm taking Colorado. I guess it depends on where you are, where you personally have these teams, but I have seen a few lists out there from people that are expecting Colorado to be as good as they were a year ago. And I'm sorry, but when you lose the best quarterback in school history with Sanders, you lose the Heisman Trophy winner in Travis Hunter. I don't think it's crazy to say that they are going to take a step back this season. And we all know that Dion fills that team up with transfer portal guys. He's been doing that. And sure, it works to an extent, but it's hard building a team like that year in and year out. Sometimes these transfer portals guys don't also work out. I mean, if you don't believe me, just ask Florida State last season and see how that worked out for them. And look, yes, they did bring in a good quarterback from Liberty, Caden Salter, who's good. He's going to battle out freshman Julian Lewis, but neither one of those guys are going to be Shedeur Sanders. And it's not like that offensive line in front of them is going to be great. Those quarterbacks are going to have to face some serious heat because Colorado is not going to be a great running team. That's going to put more pressure on your quarterback. And on top of that, defensively, yeah, they were able to get to the quarterback, but they struggled at times to stop the run. So that's a team that's going to need to get better in the trenches to compete at a very high level. And when you have guys like Sanders and Hunter playing, I don't think people understand just how many blemishes those two were able to cover up because they were just so damn good. So that's why I think Colorado is not even going to finish in the top half of the Big 12 this season. I'm probably going to have them anywhere from 9 to 10, maybe even as low as 12. So I'm not going to buy into Colorado this season.
Yeah, they're still going to have the skill, whether it's defensive back or at wide receiver. And they'll have the flash. It's just a matter, like, has Dion learned from the mistakes of the last two seasons that even though they overachieved last year, you're right, a lot of it came down to a Heisman Trophy winner and one of the best quarterbacks in the country. What does it look like without them? And are they able to maybe build up that offensive line a little bit? Have some sort of run game. When you have that talent on the outside, you don't need an elite run game. But man, if you could have just an average running game to complement that, they could be a good team. But I agree with you. I don't see a run game developing overnight with what they've brought in the portal. I'm going BYU. Hear me out. I know Jake Retzloff returns. I know they return a couple of their top wide receivers. A lot of their defense is back. They've got big experience on the offensive line. I still think they're going to be a good to really good team. My problem is in 2024, they won 4 one-score games. And a couple of them, especially the Utah game, just a little fluky and required a little bit of luck. And that's why you play the game. I'm not making excuses for why they went out and had a great season. They earned that 10, I think 11 win season. They also had that K-State game where, I still don't know what happened to K-State in that there was a 90-yard punt return, a scoop and score like that. If you wanted to drop the worst possible game for K-State, it was that. If they play that game 10 times, I don't think there's a single game that ends 38-9 or whatever that game was. They also had a +8 turnover margin. Back in 2023, they only had a +1 turnover margin. That's almost always the number one rule of football, unless you're talking about the Iowa Hawkeyes, is turnover margin tends to level out. I think all of that regression to the mean combined with a pretty tough road schedule. They go to K-State. They don't go to K-State. They go to Colorado, Iowa State, and Texas Tech. I just think BYU will be a little bit down this year and not in the Big 12 title picture at the end of the year.
And that's fair to say. That's a team, I think I talked about it yesterday on Cyclone Fanatic, but that's a team that relies on playing really good defense and running the football consistently. And Jake Retzloff, as much as he did show some improvement over the year, that's not a guy that you're going to put the game on his arm and say, go ahead and get us a touchdown. We need this drive. Or he's not going to do that for you. I don't think he's that guy. I don't think he's a top 5 quarterback in the Big 12 or top 3 quarterback, wherever you want to put him. I don't see him being that guy, and you're right. The turnovers are probably going to level out. They're going to return to the mean there. The close games can kind of go either way because you can make a point there that, yeah, instead of winning 10 games, maybe they only should have won 7 games or 8 games. So, yeah, I can definitely see that. I'm not one to buy into BYU as a legitimate Big 12 title contender this season. I don't think they're going to be in my top 3, but we'll see what happens. I mean, BYU did kind of come out of nowhere last year when everybody had them, like 12th, 13th, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I think they were picked to finish 13th. And that's where it's maybe not fair to call them overrated. I was trying to find a word that wasn't overrated. Maybe overvalued would have been a better word. Because they overachieved last year. There's no doubt. And they've pulled in a lot of NIL money that is able to not only keep a lot of talent that they have across the roster, but also patch up some holes. So I think they're certainly going to be a top half Big 12 team. I don't think they're going to end in a tie for first place like they did last year and get left out of the Big 12 championship on the last night of the season.
I can get behind that. I agree with that.
Should we do another draft?
We're not stopping.
It's become one of my favorite parts of the week. This week, we're going to do a smaller draft, and you'll see why. We're going to draft the Big 12 football rivalry games. Just football. We're each going to pick 5. And by looking at my list, it was kind of hard to come up with a list of 10. It really dropped off after
5.
It dropped off 5. After 6 for me. So we'll see where our disagreements is. Aiden has an actual coin because the last time we did a digital coin, it crashed the entire Iowa Everywhere podcast network. So
It did.
What kind of coin is that and what year is it? Tell the folks at home.
What state?
It's the United States of America quarter.
There we go.
Shout out
America.
the troops.
Can't hate on that.
1982. That's an old quarter.
Yeah.
All right.
I've seen some stuff.
Good year. I remember that year.
Yeah.
We all do. Derek, make the call in the air.
Tails.
It is tails.
Jake. Oh, man. I'm going to go first in this one. I have to take, which one I want.
Okay. I know what you're going to take.
I'm going the Holy War, BYU and Utah. Do I really need to say more here? I mean, there is not a stronger hate between two schools than BYU and Utah. They're only like an hour from one another, and it may be called the Holy War, but it is full of hate. I mean, these two can't even agree on when they started playing, for crying out loud. That's how much they hate each other and disagree with one another. So I'm going with the Holy War. I think it is the best rivalry in the Big 12. I think it's a top 5 rivalry in the sport of college football.
See, I had that number 1 on my list as well. I just thought, since you like to pander to people on social media and your Iowa State followers, I thought you were going to take Farmageddon.
Wow.
For the graphic.
Oh, okay. You think I just buy people or what?
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. After last week, it was blatantly obvious that
which I won,
your
by
draft. Yeah, because you were trying to get those on your side. I'm doing this based off of pure integrity, and I don't care what the people think of my list.
Okay.
I'm messing with you.
Go for it, man.
So, with that, I'm going Farmageddon as my first overall pick. The longest running continuous football game in the country. College football game, I should say. Unfortunately, that might be coming to an end in a couple years. We don't have to talk about it. But this is an even game. A couple of years ago, this game was split down the middle, 500 winning percentage. These are two programs that were horrendous for a very long time. Kansas State became less horrendous earlier than Iowa State. K-State had a great run with Bill Snyder. Iowa State has picked it up under Matt Campbell. And this rivalry, really since Campbell was able to get his first one and ended that, I think it was a 9-year losing streak, 9 or 10-year losing streak back in 2018. Ever since then, this rivalry game has been so back and forth. These are two fan bases that are so freaking similar. They both are in a state with a pretentious fan base that has more money, has more flash, has more toys in general in Kansas and Iowa. I'm talking universities as a whole and fan bases, not the football programs. These are two fan bases that are so similar to each other and yet hate each other so much. And it has the best name. Like that's gotta account for something. With my second pick, I'm going to go with the Rivalry. I know it's not called that anymore, or it's the Blue Bonnet, Blue Button, Blue Bunny game. I don't
Blue
care.
Bonnet Battle.
Blue Bonnet Battle. I'm calling it the Rivalry. That is Baylor and TCU, the two religious schools in the state of Texas. They're very similar schools in the sense that they're smaller fan bases, but very passionate fan bases. And this is a game that has meant a lot, not just to the Big 12, but to the college football landscape. You think back to the very first college football playoff in 2014. Both teams had one loss. Both teams had one loss, and it ended up being the difference in both of them getting left out of the college football playoff. You probably know more about this rivalry being in Texas, but this is a game that when it's on the calendar, I know that I want to tune in because I know there's going to be a lot of points scored and there's going to be no love lost on either side.
Those two schools absolutely despise one another. I love it. I'm all here for it. That's a really good pick. I'm going to go another, I guess, maybe a throwback to a Pac-12 rivalry here. Arizona State, the Territorial Cup. What a great rivalry in the Grand Canyon State. This one does not live up to the Holy War, but I feel like it's a very solid rivalry in the new look Big 12. And hey, these two schools hate each other too. So there is no love lost between these two. I think this, unfortunately, Arizona really dropped off this past season because if Arizona was going to be what we thought they were going to be this season, and you had Arizona State emerging like they did, this would have been a fantastic game towards the end of the year. Unfortunately, it was not, but I'm going to go there with my second pick. My third pick here, I've got a couple to choose from, but I'm sticking with the Kansas State theme there. I'm going to go the Sunflower Showdown, one of the few in-state rivalries left that are in the same conference still for what feels like forever. I mean, these two have always been in the same conference. They don't like each other. Really good. And now that Kansas has been competitive in football again, I think it's really brought some new life and some juice to this rivalry that it desperately needed. And some may argue that it still does because if you look back, Kansas has not won the Sunflower Showdown on the football field since 2008. So at some point that streak's going to end. That's going to be a hell of a day in Lawrence, Kansas, but I'm going to go with the Sunflower Showdown with my third pick.
Yeah, if it was on the board, I was definitely going to take it in this round, but I did have it lower on my draft board. I had it down at 5th, and it's just because of what you talked about. It's been so one-sided for so long, and I know those schools hate each other immensely, but I think the Kansas K-State basketball rivalry outweighs the football rivalry, which I don't know if you can say that about any of these other games that we're going to be talking about. For my third pick, I'll take the Butt Bowl between Baylor and Texas Tech. Another just inner Texas hatred, points all the time. How many great quarterbacks have been in this game over the years? RG3, Charlie Brewer, Patrick Mahomes. This game, especially back in the Art Briles era, delivered year in, year out. Texas Tech is at least off the field, becoming the new power in the Big 12. We'll see if that translates to on-field results. And Baylor, they've won Big 12 championships with 2 different coaches in the last decade. And that can't be overlooked. I know Dave Aranda is a bit down right now. This could be his last season. But going forward, I still think that this is a fantastic display of Big 12 football.
Great name, by the way. Butt Bowl is just iconic.
Yeah, it doesn't get much better than that. I'm really going for right now my graphic for the names, Farmageddon, Rivalry, and Butt Bowl. I'm winning that so far.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I'll give you that one.
And this is where it falls off. We've hit the top 6 picks so far, and the drop from 6 to 7 is immense. I'm gonna go with the Rumble in the Rockies.
Oh,
and
throwback.
that's Utah and Colorado. Another old Pac-12 rivalry. We didn't get to see it in full force last year because Utah was so bad, but this fully plays into and we did get the game last year. It just didn't mean much. This completely plays into weird stuff happens after dark in college football. And if I want something weird to happen in the Big 12, I want these 2 teams playing in the mountains. I don't care what part of the Rocky Mountains it's in. I want to see this in Salt Lake City. I want to see it in Boulder. These are teams, because I know everybody hates Utah fans, and if you were in the Pac-12 with Utah, you probably hate them even more. I'll take the Rumble and the Rockies as my 4th pick.
Okay, so I'm going to go here with... I'm surprised you left this one off. I thought you were leaning Texas Tech. I don't know if you know where I'm going with this. I'm going the battle for the saddle. Texas Tech and TCU.
I was close.
This may be the best trophy in the Big 12. With that damn saddle, it's so beautiful. Maybe one of the most underrated rivalries in the conference. So yes, that one is a really good one to me. Probably doesn't quite live up to Baylor TCU, but this is a very close second to me in the state of Texas for that one.
Yeah, I actually had that one above Utah, Colorado on my big board, but I didn't want to have Baylor in all 3 of my picks. So I went in another direction to get some variety.
Hey, we have some great rivalries in the state of Tech. There really is. There's a lot of good crossover here.
Unfortunately, I don't think Houston is involved in any of them yet.
Well,
maybe. Is that what you're taking with your last pick?
I almost did, but I had to lean one maybe that I would say is a low-key rivalry game in the Big 12 where outside of these 2 schools, maybe people don't realize that this is one, but I'm going with Iowa State and Kansas. I think it's an odd one, but it's a good one. Maybe more so on the hardwood for some people. But again, I think over the last few years, that's changed with Kansas emerging. Iowa State's an emerging football program as well. So I can see, this rivalry getting better and better as long as you have Lance Leopold there, Matt Campbell in place. I think this is a game that can be really, really good and competitive for years to come.
That's interesting. I would have never considered Kansas a rival for football, even though they've won the last 3 games. Maybe I need a couple more years of Kansas to be relevant for me to actually believe that Kansas is relevant, because it's still hard to believe that. And I know that they've come into Jack Trice and won. So that's an interesting pick. I'm gonna have a few honorable mentions, and I'm gonna stick in that realm, and I'm gonna go Iowa State, Oklahoma State.
Okay.
And part of that, I think we need the continuity. This is a game that's been played for a long time. These are 2 programs that weren't great for a long time, but since 2010, they've played in some classics. There's 2011, probably the greatest day in the history of Iowa State athletics from a marketing standpoint, storming the field and completely altering the course of college football forever. 2021, Oklahoma State was undefeated. Iowa State won a fantastic game with Brock Purdy. It's a game that is always competitive. I swear, every single year, no matter how good Oklahoma State is, whether they're 11-0 with a top 5 draft pick, and how bad Iowa State is, it always seems to level out and it always delivers. And that makes me worried for the final week of the season this year.
Oh, that's a good one. Did you have any other ones?
Yeah, so I had UCF and Cincy on my list.
Okay, yeah.
That was such a big rivalry in the American, and neither team has been relevant even for a second in the Big 12 yet, so I opted against that. I also had Oklahoma State against Baylor, kind of in the same realm where they met in the Big 12 championship a couple years ago. Classic finish. Feels like those games always deliver, even though there's not necessarily like a territory rival in that. Yeah, sorry, Aiden. I sent you my list and I didn't have Iowa State, Oklahoma State on that. It was kind of a last-second pivot. Did you have any honorable mentions?
I had a few. So actually on my list here, I had UCF and Houston. And I know that may sound strange, but I named it the Space Game. More of a forced rivalry than anything else. But due to both schools' connections to be called Space City, I thought that's a game that should be played every year. We need a fun rivalry in the conference like that.
Play that on Mars. We talked about playing on Mars last week. Play that game on Mars.
Hell yeah. That was one I probably would have picked if you would have picked Iowa State, Kansas. A couple others. You said UCF and Cincy. I had that one as well. Cincy, West Virginia, and Old Big East battle.
I thought about that too.
Was a really good one. And then the other one, maybe Oklahoma State, Tech. I thought could have been interesting, but Oklahoma State, Kansas State. I know that's not considered a traditional rivalry, but I think that one over the years has been really good too.
Yeah, I just felt like I had to include Oklahoma State on this list. Whether it was against Baylor, Iowa State, K-State, Tech, I feel like they had to be included against one of their foes that they've met with for a long time, but unfortunately they lost their rival. Yeah. And they're kind of left without a true rival because we're really stretching to call Iowa State, Oklahoma State a rivalry, just like we are with any of their other opponents on the schedule. And it's too bad. It's too bad for friends in Stillwater.
We kind of went Texas heavy a little here on the list. I got Tech, TCU. You got Tech, Baylor, Tech, and then TCU, Baylor. So you kind of went heavy. We both kind of went heavy. It's 3 games.
So let's we'll end the show very soon, but I've got a question before we go. Fast forward 10 years down the road. For argument's sake, we'll say that the conferences haven't changed at all. What is a Big 12 rivalry game that you could see developing that hasn't yet?
That's a really tough question because I think you have to get to a certain point of history. I've always said this. The conference does kind of have a problem of a lack of classic rivalry games with the new look Big 12. Now, you do have some old crossovers, like you mentioned Utah. I mean, obviously Utah was not in it, but Colorado. Kansas State and Colorado was a really good one back in the old days of the Big 12 North. So you can bring some juice back to these, and you're able to add the Holy War, the Territorial Cup. You're able to get some of these. You already have the Sunflower Showdown and Farmageddon, which is an absolute crime that the Big 12 did not make that a protected game, which is completely stupid. One of the biggest misses Brett Yormark's had so far, not protecting that game, but it's hard to say. I thought Cincy and West Virginia could pick up, or like Cincy, UCF, but we need to see these schools kind of perform at higher levels against one another to really kind of build that traditional rivalry. And who knows where it could happen. Maybe you could have Oklahoma State and UCF or West Virginia and Arizona. You could have some crazy combinations, but the problem is you just need that history to happen. But with everybody being so new to the Big 12, a lot of these schools really aren't that familiar with one another.
Yeah, to that point, Iowa State Baylor's not a rivalry right now, but it was when Matt Rule was there. Because of the disdain between Campbell and Rule, because of the fight. So there's always the chance where something organically develops like that. My gut feeling just tells me that Utah will have a rivalry with one of the Big 8 members, whether that's Iowa State, K-State, Baylor. I think Utah is already so dislikable, so hateable, that I think that they'll have either a Big 12 championship game, a game in late November that ends in a fight, something that sparks a true rivalry. And then I think the longer that Deion stays at Colorado,
those will build.
The more likely you are that something could develop with Kansas, K-State, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, just because, or even BYU because of the proximity to Colorado. But you're right. There is a problem that the Big 12 needs to find out how to fix, and that's creating more trophy games, but also doing it organically and not completely forcing it on people like they did the Riot Bowl, which is a great name for Iowa State, West Virginia. And they did it because, they're both northern. West Virginia doesn't have anybody. Might as well just do Iowa State. And they put it on Black Friday all those years, and it never developed into anything. So you need natural rivalries, and hopefully there's continuity in this conference. Hopefully nothing really changes with it in the future. And hopefully just year in, year out, you develop more of these games. I think Iowa State, BYU, potentially. I think it's already a rivalry in basketball. I think we are in that territory where it's becoming a rivalry on Twitter between fans. The games have all been incredible, great atmospheres. Maybe that could spill into football. We'll just have to see.
Only time will tell.
Well, I think that's about it. We went an hour today. I did not think we'd make it an hour, but it was a fun show.
Yep.
Some more good content for May. And we thank everyone that tunes in. We thank everyone who engages. And if you don't engage, maybe you can start by clicking the subscribe button, the like button, put on your notifications. Maybe tell a friend that you listen to Bigger Than 12 here on Iowa Everywhere. We'll be back next week. Thanks for listening.